Hey everybody, Steve here from The Varied Life, the retired hobby tech guy. This is what I do now that I'm retired and living overseas in Korea. This video is how to use Wainlux K10 with the CutLab X software that comes with the K10 and the Wainlux series of engravers for doing a graphic and text. And as I was perusing the interwebs, I ran across somebody who was having some problems. Karris, the person is the person's name, and they were trying to do some engraving, and all they could get was a line. And they talked about how they want to engrave some leather, put it onto a patch, and so on and so forth. It sounds pretty cool, for business, but they just can't get it going. So I decided that I will do a video to share what I know, and maybe that will help her get her machine up and running, and she can dial things in and get to printing some awesome leather patches. So we're gonna start with that. First thing we're gonna end up doing is going to our computer. I have a Mac as well, as so does this person. So I ended up pulling up CutLab X, and we're gonna run through just from the Barney basics and to getting to putting text, doing the layers, doing a graphic, all that stuff, and then printing out. I don't have any leather, so I can't help you with that, but at least put it onto some material to kind of give you an idea of the workflow. So we opened up our CutLab X, and we look here in the bottom right-hand corner. We're not connected up or anything. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to turn on our machine. And you can see the machine there on the bottom. It's going to go through and start up. And as it starts up, we're going to be using the Wi-Fi mode. So on the Mac, we're going to pull up our system settings, and we're going to go to Wi-Fi. And we're waiting for the K10 to pop up, and we get the Wainlux K10, and we're going to hit connect. That's how we're going to connect up. So you got to have the Wi-Fi on. So now we're going to go back to the CutLab X software down to the bottom right-hand corner, and you have USB or Wi-Fi. I do Wi-Fi. I haven't done USB yet. Interesting. And the IP address is 192.168.0.1, and we're going to hit connect. And we are connected, and you can hear the machine. It ends up making some noise. We have our properties, never use that. We have our cuts and our layers, which we will use that. And then we can move our print head or engraver head, doing that, but I just leave it to where it is. Yeah, the console stuff, I never use that. The engrave tab doesn't work, or I never use that. So with the K10, I have the 5-watt version, and along with the K10, you will come up with this handy little reference card paper that has all the different materials, and it has leather on there, and we're going to be using basswood. And you can see how we're going to set this up. So the first thing we have to realize is that the settings that you're going to get on your card will get you on the board, but they won't be the most optimal settings. So I did a video, and if you check out my channel, The Varied Life, you can see how to dial in your K10 printer, and you can actually print something like this. And you can actually go to the file on this Facebook group for the K10, and you can download this and run it. And this is for basswood, and you can learn how to change all of the settings or whatever to get the best possible results for the material that you're using. So don't think this is just for basswood. You can also use it for other materials. Or you could end up just doing a small series of tests of different power and speed levels to try to zero in and get the best print that you can. What I found is that doing this works really well. So we're going to go back to our CutLab X, and you said that this person said that they were able to print like a line, but they couldn't get text or the graphic, and you need to do more than lines. So we're going to talk about that. So this is our build area, which is 80 by 80 millimeters, which is about 3.14 by 3.14. So what we're going to end up doing is we want to do some text, and we want to do a graphic, and it's going to be on basswood. I don't have any leather, but so we're going to go to our photos and we're just going to pick up something like this, and we're just going to drag this in, and it's going to say, do you want to replace the white background with a transparent color? Yes. Because if you don't, what will happen is the engraver will try to print that white color, and it'll be off. And so as it engraves, you will have that and you'll get some weird, yeah, you definitely want it transparent. So now that this thing is too big, we're going to scale this thing down. And we're just going to put that right there. And I think what we're going to end up doing is we have to focus the laser. But we'll do this first, and then we'll focus the laser, and then we'll do a print and show you how everything works. So this is the graphic, and this is the engraving area. So what we want to do is a test, and from the previous test that I've ended up doing, which, let me see, where is it? So, for example, on this reference sheet, it says for basswood, it would be monochrome, overscan is 1 millimeter, interval is 0.05, speed is 5,000, power is at 50%. But when I did that, I didn't get a real good print, and you can kind of see the bottom down there. It's not clear. Well, it is kind of clear. But it didn't really come out well. And the details on that were pretty rough. That's not something that you would want. You would want better quality. So you have to dial in your machine. So by doing a series of tests with this test grid, or what I could end up doing is this right here, is that I reduce the speed and 40% power, and interval was 0.05, and we can see how much better that came into play. Let's get a larger one there. So you can see that it's a lot better with those settings than with the recommended settings that we had. So that could be an issue. So you're going to have to dial in your printer for the machine and for the material. This will just get you on the board, kind of like a dartboard. It's just going to get you on the board, and you need to zero it in to hit that bullseye to get a good print. So let's go back, and I want to explain some stuff here. So we click on this, and we notice it kind of has a blue background, and over here on the right hand side we see that it's blue. That's a layer. So every entry that's in here is its own individual layer. So this graphic is its own layer, and if we double click where it says L1, this is where we can set the information or the parameters for this. So we have a monochrome, jitter, contour, grayscale, and negative image. We're just going to go for monochrome because it's a simple black and white graphic. Interval is going to be set to 0.05, which on leather it's the interval is 0.1, so you can try that. Overscan with this basswood is 1, and then it ends up the speed is 5,000 and the power is 50%. Now when we did that, we didn't get the most optimal settings. So what I ended up doing is through this test grid that I did, I found out that a speed of 2,000, which will slow the laser down, which will give more burn time into the material and reduce the power down to 40%, and everything else being the same, I came out with a much better print. And this is on basswood. And you might have to do the same thing with your leather patches and whatever. You're going to do some test runs. So once we've got all this, we're set, and we're just going to hit confirm. So that is the layer for the graphic. Now we want to do some text. So let's say we go over here on the right hand side, we'll go down to the text, and we will set it for, I don't know, let's just do something a little different. I don't know. whatever. We'll just pick one. And Baskerville. Let's give that a shot. And we'll type in Star Wars Walker. And a vertical spacing, you could have it do vertical spacing or text or whatever. We're just going to hit confirm. Now, if we look in the top right-hand corner, we see that we now have two layers, but they both are colored in blue, but we want the text to be in a different color. So we're going to go down to the bottom here, and we're going to click this green. I could use red, but mostly for engraving and cutting, red is an indication that you're cutting something. So that's what people told me, so we're just going to run with that, and we'll just go with green on the text. Now the text, what we can end up doing is grabbing it, and we could make it smaller or bigger, and we're just going to make it about that size there, and we'll put it underneath. And then when we go to this different layer, so think of it as the engraver will engrave the graphic, and then it'll do a separate operation of doing the text. So we need to have a different layer for that. So we double click this, and because it's a different color, we can set this so that it has its own power settings and print and so on and so forth. So the first thing we have is we can do a line where it'll do the outline of the letters, and on the inside it'll just be plain. But we're going to do fill. You can also do cross fill. It'll give you a more even type of thing, but we're just going to do fill because that's easy. Interval is 0.05 for text, which I found is pretty good. We're looking at, what was it, 3,000 at 80%. Cycle time is how many times it's going to run that, and we're just going to do it once, and so that's what we want there, so we're going to hit confirm. So that will fill in, see how it just filled in everything there? If we can make this bigger, we can see that it filled everything in versus being on the line, which will leave the space in between. So we're going to just leave that at fill, and we're making it a little bit smaller, so it's like that. And now what we're going to end up doing, that is what we want printed. So we've decided on that, and I've got some spare space on this. So now what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go over to our machine, and let's do that. We'll hit this up. And we'll lift the lid, and we're going to not drop it. And we're going to put this so the corner is pretty much at the corner where the home position is. So you can see that there. Depending on your patch, you'll have to, do some Kentucky windage and making sure that it will be in the right place. So there we can see that that is all set up. Now the other thing we need to do is we need to focus the laser. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here to move on this right hand side, and we're just going to go back, and we're going to move it a little bit. And if we look at the machine, we can see that the print head, the engraving head is moved. And so now what we'll end up doing, because you have to get the right height, is we will loosen it. Now this is the 5-watt version. If you have a 3-watt version, there's just a little dial on the laser, and you just adjust the dial, and you would put a black piece of paper that was included with your kit, and then you just rotate the dial so you get the smallest point on the black paper. Once you've done that, then you're good to go. So you put the black paper on top of your material. But with this one, we can move the print or the engraving head up and down, and as long as it touches, and now we're just going to go ahead and we'll tighten that up. And we'll do that, and we are good to go. So now we're going to go back to our machine, and remember, we're going to go to, on the right hand side, we're going to go to cut and layer. We just want to verify our settings, so if we double click on the first one, the blue one, which is the graphic, we double check all of our settings, and all of those are good, so we're confirmed. We'll double check our text. Now again, you have to have a different layer for each thing that you put on there, and all of this is good. So if I had a couple other graphics, like if I wanted to put in something else in here, what I could end up doing is dragging another photo in here. We'll just drag this one in here. And that ends up really huge, of course. But that would be, again, its own separate layer. But it's always going to revert back to whatever the last color was. We see that it's green, but once this is selected, I can go and let's just click number 4, kind of the mud yellow look. And then I could double click and then I could do all my settings for that particular graphic. Some graphics will look better with different settings than others, so it's not a one size fits all. So we're not going to do that, but yeah, you need to have separate layers. And let's say I wanted to cut this out. So let's say this is on leather, and what I want to end up doing is cutting. And so what I could end up doing is saying, okay, well, on my basswood or my leather, I can draw, and that's the boundary that I want. Okay, that sounds good. I'm going to turn it red because that indicates that it's going to cut this out of the material. I'll double click on the red, which is its own separate layer, and I would make sure that it would do the cut, which would probably be 100% power at speed of 100. And I've had some instances where it wouldn't cut through the basswood. I don't know about leather, but you might have to end up doing 2 passes on the cycle time instead of 1. But then you could also reduce the power and the speed. That's an option, so you don't overcut and char the material. So you're going to have to play with that. So sometimes with this 3mm basswood, it would not cut because the basswood actually measured 3.3 millimeters, and the 100 speed and 100% power doing that cut didn't cut all the way through. So I ended up doing, what was it, like 2 passes at 80% or 90% or something like that, and it was able to cut through and minimize the scorching on the cut. So that's how you could do that. We're not going to do a cut because that will just take more time, but we're just going to go back to our select tool. We have our graphic, we're good to go. We have our text, we're good to go. And now we're going to go back to here on the bottom right, and we have pause, stop, start, preview. Now we're going to go ahead and click preview, and let's go back here. And when I click preview, it's going to run over the area. I need to click off everything. Let me show you what I ended up doing. So there was the text. I had that highlighted. When I pressed preview, what happened was it'll just highlight or preview the area for that individual thing. And I think that might be what you're doing, is that you are had that text or that line selected, and when you did preview and print, that's all it's going to print. Excuse me. So we have our selection tool. We're just going to click off, so everything is here. And now when we hit preview, it goes over everything, so the text and the graphic. So just realize that if you do the preview, what's going to end up happening is it will either do everything or it will just preview the selected item that you had. So make sure that you unselect so that everything that you have on your engraving area will show on the preview. So now that we've done that, let's get back, let's see, yeah, that's the one we want. So we hit preview, and we'll just double check this again. That is the area that we want with our settings, and now we can just go ahead and click start. It's going to go ahead and upload the file. wirelessly through the magic of wireless, and it's going to go ahead and start printing. And you're going to have to fine tune and test to find out which settings are good for text and graphic on, you said you're going to be engraving on leather. So, man, I was thinking, I don't have any leather anywhere. No, I don't. I don't even have fake leather. But, you know, give the settings a shot on this, try it, and see what happens. But if the reason that you're only getting a line and you have multiple things on your CutLab X, like we ended up showing, like let's say we wanted to do a line. This isn't really a line. Well, I don't even know. What is that? Yeah, we're just going to do a line. Okay, let's say we wanted to throw this line in there as well. This is after the fact. I just want to rotate this around and blah, blah, blah. Because I thought that would look cool, and that's going to be part of the thing, you know. If I just have that selected and I do the preview and I go to start, it will only do what is selected here. But if I have everything, in other words, nothing is selected, it's going to look at all of this and say, hey, we're going to do a preview, we're going to do the cut and the engraving and everything on this here. So yeah, make sure that you just don't have one thing selected and then you do preview and start, because that will be the only thing that will print. So let's go back to our machine. We'll see that we're about 40% done. And it looks like it's turning out pretty good. Let's see if we can zoom in there a little bit. Not bad. But the other thing you need to remember is that, again, you're going to have to dial in your individual printer. And again, that's where you're going to take your test piece here, and you could download this. And for each one of these squares, you can click on that, and they're all going to be different colors, and you can set the different parameters for that. So as that's printing, I'll kind of explain this. So for each individual square would be a different colored box on the CutLab X. And so when you click on it, you can set it for the appropriate power setting, and or speed setting, and the power along the bottom. So at this one here, it'd be 40% at a speed of 2000, and then 2050, 2060, 2070% power. And then you just run through this matrix. You do a separation of about 10, maybe 10 or 20 below the recommended little reference chart that you have here, and then do 10 or 20 above it. So obviously you can't go higher than 5,000 millimeters per minute, but the power you could set to 100. So you could go up, but I would start with like 70% and do a test of 70, 80, 90, and 100% at 5,000 millimeters a minute with your overscan as 1, interval of 0.1, and see how that turns out. So with that, we're at about 77% right now. And we can see that it's doing pretty good. It's definitely a lot better than the original recommendations, as we can see there. And we should get something that is similar to that right there. So yeah, we should get a pretty decent print. And that was kind of frustrating at the beginning, because I was like, wait a second, I'm using the recommendations, but I'm not getting a real good, nice print. And that's because you have to dial in your machine for your material by adjusting the speed and the power. When you slow down the speed, and keep the power the same, it's going to result in a darker engraving on the material of the graphic or the text that you're doing. If you go faster, it'll go faster. The laser spends less time on the material, and so you should get a lighter color. And again, you got to do some test pieces and try that out and see how it works out. Okay, so now we finished up, and we will take a look and see what we get. See that there, we got our walker, which is not too bad. And of course this thing is going to have a hard time focusing. Focus. Well, we'll just get it up over here, I'll show you. So what we ended up with is a really nice, on focus, there we go. So we got a really nice walker on that compared to the original recommendation on that reference card. So yeah, that is pretty sweet. And there's some pretty fine lines on that that just didn't come up with the recommended settings. So you're gonna have to do the same thing when printing on leather, is to, man, that text came out really good. I like that. What was that? The text was, that was Baskerville. I like that. That Baskerville came out nice. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, so you'll have to do some test pieces on that. And again, going back to the software, if you have a line on here that you drew and you have text or graphic, whatever you have highlighted, and matter of fact, let's just throw this in here and I'll show you. And we'll just kind of eyeball this. And we're just going to select the text and we'll do preview. And let's take a look at that again. That's not what we want. What we want is that. And remember, I had just the text selected. It's still selected, so when I do preview, it's only going to print that text. So if I click the graphic, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So now I click the graphic before I just had the text. If I just click the graphic, and I hit preview, there it shows where that graphic would go. Now the other thing we could end up doing is, again, you're on your selector tool, you just click anywhere else so that nothing is selected, you hit preview, and you will get both the text and the graphic where it will go on that material. With that being said, if I highlighted everything and I did preview, then it would do the same thing. So I guess it comes down to, and I did this too. I did the exact same thing. I was like, wait a second, why didn't this print? Because I accidentally had the last thing that I put on there was highlighted, and that's the only thing that printed out. So anyway, I hope that, and let's just prove this. We'll just go ahead and hit start. And this is going to be small. We can see that there. It's just doing the text. So really, you just need to kind of be careful on what you have selected or not, because that can make a difference in what prints and what doesn't. Alrighty. And we are done. So pull that out. And once again, we got some cool text on there. But once you get your settings set for that material, seriously, let's go. Okay. So once you have the material set with the settings for, like for example, your text, we got pretty much the exact same. You can file those, keep some notes for, basswood, graphic is going to be, the recommended settings of whatever it ended up being. 5, nope, it wasn't that one. Of course, I could just look on here and tell you what it is. Set of speed of 2000, overscan 1, interval 0.05, power 40%, goes over it once and you're good to go. Keep notes of the different materials you have so that you can reference those, so you don't have to redo everything, redo test pieces and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's it. And if we end up looking at the text, again, copy that information down on the settings for the text to find out, hey, this is what really works best and that's what I like. Write all that stuff down. And again, going back to the graphic, write all that information down. Once you find that happy sweet spot, and you should be good to go. Alrighty, so that's it. I hope, Karris, that this helps out with you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because I kind of do some of that stuff there. And yeah, I'm retired in Korea. I play around. I'm doing this thing with the K10 and learning as I go. Really enjoying it, but you definitely need to dial in your printer by doing a test grid on the different materials and then recording those for the best optimal results, so that whenever you want to do a leather patch or you want to do some other material, you can just quickly find that information, put it in, rocking and rolling, you're good to go. So anyway, yeah, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate that. And if you feel the need to buy me coffee, you can do that as well. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email at officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. So yeah, that's what we got going on. And hopefully, Karris, this helps you out and to get your leather hat patch thing going on for your business. And yeah, that's it. All right, so we'll see you on the next video. Peace. Good stuff.